earlier today. More now on the kidnapping of Jaycee Lee Dugard. She was held for 18 years by Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy. Neighbours say during that time they saw Jaycee leaving and returning to the house without her captor. Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Aisha Gill, who's a senior lecturer in criminology at Roehampton University in London, and she specialises in violence against women, and I asked her what her reaction to the case was.
It's a very disturbing case, particularly in terms of the nature of the violence perpetrated against the victim and the level of captivity and incarceration that she was subjected to.
It does seem astonishing that she was there all that time and no one noticed or told the police or told the authorities.
Well, there is systemic failure by the authorities. This alleged kidnapper was sentenced for a rape case in the 1970s. He was tagged. Parole officers were aware of his crimes, but inevitably what had happened that he wasn't tracked effectively. And so there are serious questions to be asked about the process of the way in which the criminal justice system failed to protect.
Why would a child, though, who'd been taken like that, not take the first opportunity to escape?
I mean, that's a question that's often asked where victims are subject to traumatic forms of violence, that they may start to display what is properly known as the Stockholm Syndrome, in which there are situational factors which include the threat to their life, inability to escape, also the way in which the aggressor behaves towards them. They may show some level of benevolence, form of kindness, and as a result the victim in question may use adaptive behaviour to deal with the stressful situation that they find themselves in. I would be reluctant to blame the victim for to say, why didn't she leave, when the circumstances were absolutely unimaginable, and she probably feared for her life, fear of a reprisal. When she was torn from her familiar environment, she was subjected to a loss of a sense of self, a sense of identity, which meant that probably her only level of survival was to tolerate or be subjected to the violence that she was subjected to.
What do you make of Garrido's quotes about how heartwarming his capture of her was and how changed he is as a person because of it?
I find it disturbing. I find it sick that someone can use such circumstances to distort the heinous crimes that an individual has committed. And I do think that this individual had no good intentions.
What about the role of his wife?
Well, there have been cases where women also collude in violence against others. We'll have to wait and see what role she played. There is a level of complexity to give due regard to here, particularly in terms of how the Stockholm Syndrome may have also played out in terms of her inability to escape from the violence and the environment. But obviously there'll be questions will be asked in terms of her complicity in kidnapping a young defenceless child. And we have to remember this was a young defenceless 11-year-old child who was torn away from her environment.
Dr. Aisha Gill, the heartbroken parents